Hello, Creative Gems. Welcome back to Creativity. And if you're new here, I'm Sandy. Today we're going to be using a number of different embellishment ideas to transform a couple of cookie tin containers into the most beautiful, unique looking storage solutions, starting with this round one. This one actually already has a beautiful design, as you can see, but I'm going to play up these silver designs further, and by the time we're done, you won't even recognize this container. We're going to start with the lid first though. I have this silver rhinestone and crystal trim, and I'm just going to hot glue it directly onto the side of the lid. And don't worry if you don't have the exact same embellishments that I'm using today. Sometimes not all the designs are easy to find, so what I've done is I put together a curated list of all of my favorite rhinestone and crystal trims and included a link to them in the description box down below. If you're not able to find the same ones as I'm using today, you can always refer to my list for other beautiful options that are readily available online. Okay, so with the trim applied, we're going to focus on embellishing the top area of the lid. I found this round black frame mirror at the Dollar Tree. The first thing I'll do is flip this mirror upside down because we're going to have to fill the cavity at the back of the mirror with some foam pieces to make it easier for us to secure it to the lid later. I'm just using leftover foam board from a previous craft project, and I cut them up into smaller pieces so they would fit into the cavity of the mirror. Next, I'll use some hot glue to secure the foam pieces. Since the cavity is pretty deep, I'm going to add a second layer of foam board. This mirror is actually just a tiny bit smaller than the lid, and when we're done with securing these foam pieces to the cavity of the mirror, I'm going to embellish this mirror before securing it onto the lid. Since the cavity is pretty deep, I'm going to have to add a second layer of foam board. And now I'm thinking a third layer will be needed. We want to make sure that the foam board is stacked thick enough to actually be able to adhere directly onto the lid. Here you can see I'm tearing away the outer layer of a third piece of foam board, and that's because it's just a little too thick. And then afterwards, I wasn't sure how well the foam board would adhere to the lid using hot glue, and because the mirror is rather large. So what I'm doing now is using a box cutter to shave off a bit more of that third piece of foam board so I can make it thinner. That way I can place a thin piece of wood on top, and then that will directly adhere to the lid with hot glue. This is a piece of wood that is actually part of a very large popsicle stick that I cut out, and I think it will be perfect to help adhere the mirror to the lid. So now with that part done, I'm going to take my metallic silver paint marker and paint the black frame, leaving the sides alone for the time being. And while I work on that, I would like to take a moment to thank you for tuning in to today's craft project. If you enjoy glam home decor and DIY crafts on a budget, please let me know by hitting that subscribe button. And if you like what you see today, please give me a thumbs up as well so YouTube will continue to recommend my channel to other viewers like you. Okay, so now for the sides of the mirror, I'm going to grab a roll of this rhinestone and crystal trim. This one is new, and I don't think you've seen me craft with this, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And the great thing about this trim is that it's self-adhesive, so I won't have to mess with any glue to apply this trim. I think I got pretty lucky because this trim is pretty much the exact width of the frame, and it's pretty sticky, so once you get it onto the frame, it's not going to go anywhere. Next, we have this little area that is white. Nothing wrong with that at all, but I really want this container to be blinged out in silver as much as possible. So I'm going to add a string of these silver beads all around the frame of the mirror. So here's what the lid looks like now. It's no ordinary lid, probably a ½ inch taller than it was originally, and it's full of bling, just the way I like it. Now let's work on the rest of the container. I want the container to match the lid, so I'm going to take some of the same silver beads we just used on the lid and apply it all along the bottom of the container. Using some of the same embellishments between the lid and the container itself will actually give it a more cohesive design and really make the two pieces match. And while I work on this, comment down below with the words tin container and let me know if you have ever crafted with empty cookie tin containers before. I really enjoy crafting with them because there are so many different designs you can decorate them with. Every container I have embellished are one of a kind, and you would never guess looking at them after the transformation that they were once cookie containers. Next, I'm going to take a different silver rhinestone and crystal trim and apply it above the silver designs. I'm applying the trim right below the lip of the container since we want to make sure we're still going to be able to place the lid on top later. Now, unfortunately, this trim is not self-adhesive, so I'm going to have to glue it onto the container. And I'll just let you know, my first attempt at securing this specific trim to the container was actually a big fail because I used hot glue and it seems that hot glue just does not bind together metal and whatever material it is at the back of this trim. I think it may be called resin, but I'm not too sure. So if any of you have crafted with this type of trim, please comment down below and let me know what the back of this trim is made of. In the meantime, I ended up peeling off the hot glue from the tin container and now I'm applying some tacky glue instead. This tacky glue is not as thick as hot glue and it definitely does not cure right away, so what I'm going to have to do is use some clips to clip the trim to the container to keep it in place while the tacky glue dries. It's a little bit of an annoyance that I will have to wait for the tacky glue to fully cure, but I really don't know what other options there are because even if I use E6000 or Fixall, those also take hours to fully cure. Comment down below if you have any other suggestions for me. Okay, so I ended up leaving this thing overnight, so for sure now all the tacky glue has fully cured, so I'll go ahead and remove the clips. This container is actually looking good, but we're far from done yet. Let's go ahead and flip this container over because the next thing I want to do is build some legs for it. So I have these small silver ornament balls left over from Christmas and I'm just removing the caps off of them. They actually pull off very easily. I've got 4 done here and now I'm going to use my scissors to snip off the tips. we'll want to clean up the hole as neatly as possible. Next, I'm going to take some of these silver beads that we used earlier on the container and hot glue a small ring of them onto each ornament ball like so. This step is actually optional, but I think the beads add a bit of additional design to our container legs, and it will also continue to provide a cohesive design to the entire container when we're done. By the way, if you don't happen to have any of these ornament balls, I have two options for you. The first one is to grab a few crystal cabinet doorknobs instead to use as legs for this container. In fact, I have included a couple of links to some really beautiful but very budget-friendly ones down below in the description box. The alternative is to keep watching, because when we get to crafting with our second tin container, I'll show you how you can DIY your very own crystal cabinet doorknobs. With the three legs glued to the bottom of the container, this is what it looks like. I think the legs instantly elevate the look of the container and makes it look quite unique. In fact, this is another design technique I like to use in many of my crafts when making candle holders, crafting with containers, and crafting with bowls. Now, what I want to do is add some gems onto the container. These silver designs you see here look like they're cute little snowflakes, so what I want to do is add a small clear round gem to the center of each. I've got some gems here, and I'm going to use my handy dandy gem picker tool to apply the gems. I'll start by applying a dot of tacky glue onto the container first, and then using the tool I'll drop gem into place. And by the way, the tacky glue I'm using dries clear, so don't worry if you see any excess glue ooze out underneath each gem. By the time the glue dries, you won't be able to see it. And I know some of you are going to ask about the gem picker tool I'm using, so I'll also mention that a link to the tool along with all my other favorite crafting tools are included in the description box down below. But if you happen to do your own nails, I suspect you may already have one, because it's essentially the same tool that you would use when applying gems to your nails. Now, as a final piece of embellishment before we finish this container off, I want to add a bit more bling. If you've seen any of my other home decor craft videos, you'll know what I always say: the more bling, the better. Who agrees with me? Let me know down in the comments. Here I have some silver rhinestone trim that I can cut to size. I'll cut 2 rows and adhere the strips vertically in between each of the snowflake designs. This trim is also self-adhesive, which makes it super easy to work with without having to mess with any more glue. And with that done, here's the final look for our embellished silver cookie tin container. I'm so glad I was able to find a way to keep the original snowflake design on the container instead of painting over it or covering it up like I normally would with other cookie tins. And the legs really elevate the look of the container. And when the lid is closed, you can put stuff on top of the mirrored lid as well. In fact, here I added a toy animal from Dollar Tree that I painted to gold and silver. I think it might be a lion or a lioness. If any of you know, please let me know down in the comment section. And with that said, let's continue with our second tin container. This second container I have is a rectangular one, and it also has a silver color theme to it already, so I'm not going to need to paint it over, which will make it super easy and quick to make over this container. I'll start by dressing up the sides of the container with some silver rhinestone cluster trim. This one is almost as wide as the sides, but not quite. Probably short by about 1 millimeter, but it won't matter much because the silver trim will likely blend nicely with the silver design on the tin container. This trim is actually really pretty, but it's not self-adhesive like the other ones we used earlier, so I'll adhere it to the container with some hot glue. I'm going to try and use the hot glue sparingly though, because hot glue tends to cool and dry in clumps, and we definitely don't want that to happen with this trim. I want this trim to lie as flat as possible directly onto the container. The other option I could use is tacky glue, but that will take some time to fully cure, and I would prefer not to have to wait to finish making over this container. In fact, while I work on this trim, comment down below with the words tin container and let me know which is your favorite type of glue to craft with. For my crafts, many of you have seen me use my hot glue gun constantly, but I only use hot glue when I need the glue to dry really fast or if I'm binding things together that doesn't require super glue level of bonding. But I also like to use tacky glue when I'm working with loose flat back gems. And my latest discovery is using wood glue when working with the wooden picture frames, wooden popsicle sticks, and other similar items. And then finally, if I'm working with glass or mirrors, I usually go with either E6000 or Fix All. I actually prefer Fix All over E6000 because it smells less and they sell it at the Dollar Tree. So now you probably know the drill. I'm going to turn this box upside down and then we're going to place 4 legs onto the bottom of the container, one on each corner. I have a bag of clear diamond shaped acrylic gems. Actually, I have two because the second bag of gems is a bit bigger and it's from the Dollarama. And this time we're going to make our own crystal doorknob legs, just like I said earlier. The question is whether we should use the larger gems or the smaller ones, which we can decide in a bit. Right now, I'm going to remove the caps off each silver ornament ball and then take some good scissors and snip off the tips from each ball. This is how each ornament ball should look like. The hole is small, but that's okay because what we're going to do is fit the tip of one of the gems into the hole like so. Using a bit of hot glue applied around the entrance of the hole will keep the gem stay in place. And you probably guessed it by now, we're going to use the smaller gems from the Dollar Tree because it scales better with the small size of the ornament ball we're using. So I'll continue to build out a total of 4 legs. Now the legs are ready to be adhered to the box. I'll place each leg as close to the outer corner of the box as possible because I want to be able to see the beautiful gem pieces when the box is sitting on the table. If I place the legs too far inwards, no one will be able to see the pretty legs at all. Take a look at that. It's quite pretty already, but it's not done without the lid. So we've got the lid here. Again, it's already silver, so I won't bother painting it. But there's some printing on the side of the lid that we'll definitely want to cover up, and I've got just the right type of trim. This trim is silver with tiny little rhinestones and some rectangular glass gems, which will look beautiful on the lid. It's also the perfect size for our lid. Okay, so I've got the sides of the lid embellished, but what about the top of the lid? Well, I've got another mirror here, and this one is also from the Dollar Tree. It has very pretty scallop corners, quite unique actually, and the frame is pretty dark though, so we'll need to figure out how to decorate it with some silver embellishments. Around back there is a cavity, so once again we're going to have to put something inside so we can more easily adhere it to the lid. But first I'm going to take some more silver rhinestone trim and apply it all along the sides of the frame. This trim is very flexible, so it will be very easy to wrap the trim around the corner edges of the frame. And it can also be cut to size according to the width of the frame. With the sides done, I'm also going to use some trim for the top of the frame, but it's going to be a different trim. The silver rhinestone cluster trim I'm using actually matches the trim we used on the box itself, so it will give the container a more cohesive design from top to bottom. And just as a reminder, because I know some of you are going to ask again, I've got links to the rolls of trims as well as my other favorite embellishments down in the description box. Now that I have all the trim applied, you can still see that a bit of the black frame is still exposed, so I'll go back in with my silver metallic paint marker to paint the rest of the frame. Now, as a final embellishment, you can still see a bit of the black frame along the outer edges of the mirror inside, so I'm going to use some silver beads to camouflage that. If you don't mind a bit of the black frame peeking through though, you can skip this step. Or I know some of you have commented in the past that you don't like the look of the silver beads, so you can opt to apply a different trim instead. In fact, leave a comment and let me know what you think of these silver beads. They're very commonly used in Mardi Gras and other celebrations, and I personally like to use them in my crafts because the silver ones have a mirror-like finish, which matches with a lot of my home decor pieces. Okay, so it's now time to stick the framed mirror onto the lid. I've turned the mirror over and I've got a few pieces of leftover foam board already cut up. So I'm going to hot glue them into the cavity, two pieces stacked together on each side. And finally, I'll apply some hot glue onto the top foam board pieces, and now we're ready to place it onto the lid. You can see there's a tiny little gap between the mirror and the lid, but I think that actually adds a design element that makes this entire box quite unique. And here's the final look for our second tin container makeover. This transformation is absolutely gorgeous. The only thing is I'll need your help in suggesting what I should store inside the two boxes I made over today. Should I use them to store old pictures or greeting cards, maybe some family recipes? Use them as jewelry boxes or keepsake boxes, or just leave them out to display as part of my home decor. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed today's craft tutorial, please like and subscribe to my channel and share with other creative gems. Also remember to hit the notification bell so you can be notified every time I have another DIY glam project on my channel.